I can't tell you how many Sundays that I stand after service at the back of this room and hear one statement after another that sounds like these. You spoke to me today. Your talk today was just for me. You touched me. How did you know? How did you know? Because today the talk was just for me. And I'll tell you how I know. It's not magic. And it's not like I can see inside your head. But what I do every week is I tune into myself. And if there's something going on in me, I know it's going on in you. When something is going on in me, it's going on in you. And it might not be to the degree as it's going on in the person sitting next to you, but that's what oneness is all about. So today's service is just for you. I believe that we're connected at the heart level. All of humanity is connected at the soul level. When you feel pain, I feel pain. When you rejoice, I rejoice. And while I can't take on your pain, I certainly feel that pain that you're feeling. I received word yesterday that one of my best buddies from high school died from a heart attack. So quite suddenly. Now I probably should tell you that he was my first boyfriend. I met him in the 9th grade, and all through school we were in the same pack. In fact, his wife, who I had known since I was 4, I still know her, and she's still alive. So I have known her since we were 4, was also in that same pack. And while I cannot imagine the immensity of her pain, I know it in oneness. Today's service is just for you because it's about our cuts, it's about our wounds, it's about our hurts, it's about those unexpected events in our lives that help shape who we are. And the invitation in the service today is to remember to be with that pain and to feel it all the way through to your foundation. And in feeling it all the way through to your foundation, know that it is your teacher, it is your gift, it is your spiritual awakening, so that as we emerge from that cut, that hurt, that unexpected life event, we emerge back into the world with that full and divine holy purpose. Today's talk is just for you. So take whatever burden you've been carrying, just take it and put it on the ground right next to you. You can pick it up later if you want, and brush your shoulders off, and then repeat after me. I am open.
I am open.
I am available.
I am available.
I am ready.
I am ready.
We're in the middle of a 3-week series on diamonds, looking at the standards of quality that jewelers and gemologists look at when they examine a diamond. They're called the 4 C standards for rating the value of a diamond. Clarity, carat, cut, and color. And this week we're looking at cut, because each one of those actually serves as a metaphor for our life. The cut of a diamond reveals the brilliance that's already there. Now, diamonds were created about 1 billion years ago. I kid you not, it's not an exaggeration. I really mean they're created about 1 billion years ago. Little carbon pockets were subjected to intense pressure and massive amounts of heat. And then they were crushed and pressed and buried down there, and now we're digging them out. Mining them actually requires a lot of patience. It requires monstrous machinery and high explosives. And once the diamonds are extracted from all that, the dirt gets cleared away, the other stones get cleared away, and they look something like this. Now I, to my untrained eye, would have said these are ordinary pebbles. They look like ordinary shiny pebbles to me. But once they get cut, their brilliance is released. They're allowed and empowered to shine the light that already lives inside of them. Now, does that sound like a metaphor for life or what? Because when we are willing to cut, when we're willing to release a relationship that's not serving us, when we're willing to leave a situation, when we're willing to move out of a residence or move to a new city, when we're willing to leave a job or consider retirement, all of those are cuts in our lives. And all of those cuts create this magnificent surface facet network that helps magnify our brilliance. It helps us shine. It helps us be who we were meant to be in the world. Now, diamond cutting is very precise, and there are a number of different shapes you can cut diamonds into. You can cut them into round or marquise or pear shape. But in 1919, a man by the name of Michael Tucker, thank you. Michael Tucker invented a mathematical formula that diamond cutters could use that would retain the proportion of the surfaces of the cuts so that you maximize not only the value of the diamond, but you maximized its brilliance. And here's how he figured it out. Well, number one, he came from a long line of diamond cutters. Another thing, he went to the University of London and studied engineering. But he came up with this formula because he realized if the cut was too shallow, and I know it's really small, so don't worry, I'll talk about it, then the light goes right through and escapes through the bottom. If the cut is too deep, the light escapes from the sides. But if it's perfectly cut into what we now call the American standard, then more light, more brilliance comes right out the top. Just like life. When we aren't living in our full brilliance, our energy, our life energy is just leaking out all over the place. It leaks out our bottoms, it leaks out the side. Sometimes, if our life energy is all about expression, then we're expressing our anger. Have you been around somebody whose anger comes out sideways? Yeah, they're not really mad at you, but they're mad at somebody else, but they're going to yell at you because you're, anyway. So, see the importance of all the cuts that come in our lives. Because when we're not allowing our cuts to be optimal for ourselves, when we're not treating them as our teacher, when we're not treating our cuts as a gift or as a spiritual awakening, then we're actually diminishing the light that flows through us. We're diminishing our brilliance. Our choices are less than our highest and best. In the February 2008 issue of the Daily Word, which is Unity's bi-monthly publication, Michael Beckwith, another Michael, wrote an article about his spiritual awakening. He talked about how he had gone to Morehouse College, and then from there he attended my alma mater, the University of Southern California. But while he was at the University of Southern California, he recognized that he could make a little money by selling pot. So he started selling pot. And in fact, he was so successful in selling pot that he had people in Atlanta, Nashville, New York, and Los Angeles, and he was making thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars a week selling pot. He was also a member of several protest groups. I didn't even know USC had protest groups, but he was a member of several groups. And one day he was at a meeting and he looked around and he heard his inner voice say, "If you were in charge of the world, would the world change? And would it change for the better?" And he looked around at each of the people in that room and he recognized that the room was full of ego, full of anger, full of hate, and that the only way that the world could change was if we changed. So the only way the world could change was if I changed. The only way the world could change is you change. The only way that the world could change was if Michael could change. A week later, he heard that one member of the group shot another in a power struggle. And that night he had a dream in which he saw his own death. But when he woke up, he wasn't afraid at all. He felt immersed and surrounded by the universal presence that we call God. And in that moment, he decided that he was no longer going to sell drugs after the next big deal. And before that next big deal, he was arrested and he was sent to jail. So that was his cut. That was his cut. And the whole time he was waiting to go on trial, he kept thinking, I'm not worried. The inner voice tells me, don't be worried. This is just transformation. This is your next right step. This is the evolution of your transformation. And he started reading books about meditation and spirituality. And when it came time to go before the judge, there he was in court. And the judge turned and asked the arresting officer, how did you know to raid Michael's house? And the officer said, well, I heard it from an informant. Michael's attorney said, objection. The judge called a recess, and when they came back to court 3 days later, it was discovered that there was no informant. So the judge couldn't impose a sentence, and Michael was let go. But as he stood, as he rose, the judge turned and looked at Michael and said, Mr. Beckwith, I hope to never again see you in my courtroom. And Michael said, you will never see me again in your courtroom. And he walked out. But the story doesn't end there, because by the time he got home, he began to fill with doubt in his heart, in his mind. Can I stick to my decision? Can I stick to my declaration? And can I stick to the promise that I made the judge? It happened to be a very windy day. The wind was blowing with great velocity, and he stood there outside his house and looked at his neighbor's house, and right on top of his neighbor's house was a weather vane, and the weather vane arrow was pointing exactly opposite from where Michael was standing. And Michael looked at that weather vane and he said, God, if you are really here, if you really mean that I am going through a spiritual awakening, turn that weather vane toward me. And before the words were hardly out of his mouth, that weather vane turned and pointed straight at him. Another cut. Another cut. Those brilliant cuts that have made him who he is today. Today he's a minister. He's the leader of his own New Thought movement. I don't know if you know him, but his first teacher was Ernest Holmes. And here's what Ernest Holmes said. We should expand our thought until it realizes all good, and then cut right through all that appears to be, and use this almighty power for definite purpose. So Michael recognized this is true, and he also recognized what Paul said in Romans. We know in all things God works for the good. So here's my question. How are you using your almighty power? How are you taking that purpose, that holy purpose that you have, and using it in an almighty way to accomplish things? And really, what is that purpose? What is that purpose that you have? What is it? I say it, but you got to know it for yourself. I think ultimately our purpose is to love. Ultimately our purpose is to love. If I were to talk to you about rock and roll, I could not continue the conversation without talking about Elvis Presley or the Beatles. Would you agree with me?
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're talking about diamond cutting. And we've already talked about Michael Tokowski because he was the one who created that mathematical formula. We can't talk about diamond cutting without him, and we already have. But we also can't talk about diamond cutting without one of the newest revelations, the newest discovery in the art of cutting, and that's the cut of heart and arrows. It looks like this. When you look at the diamond from the bottom, you see 8 perfectly symmetrical hearts. And when you look at the diamond from the top, you see 8 perfectly symmetrical arrows. I like this because to me, those hearts at the bottom reflect our foundation. They are a representation of our God self. God is love, we are love. We're created in the image and likeness of God. So at our foundation, at our very core, we have those 8 perfectly symmetrical hearts. The arrows represent how we are in the world, how we live out our holy purpose. These arrows remind me of a crystal energy grid that I put up in my office. I put it up in October, and in the center of the grid I have one big crystal, and then I have 8 and 16 single terminated crystals, and I had them all pointing in. I had them all pointing in because I felt like Unity has such a powerful message. It's a message of healing. It's a message of reconciliation. It's a message of self-love. And I wanted to magnetize people to our message. I wanted people to come here and learn for themselves how beautiful they are, how powerful they are. I wanted everybody to come here. And then one morning at the end of February, I came to work and I picked up every one of those single terminated crystals and I turned them the other way. And I had them pointed out. And I couldn't figure out why. And I sat there all day at my desk looking at why did I want them pointing out? And then my inner voice said, it's because we're not about getting. We're not about getting more people. We're not about getting. We're about giving. We're about serving. We're about reminding people that we are love and they are love. That we are joy and they are joy. That we are light, brilliant light, and they are brilliant light. So with our way of being, we are that message pointing out. And I'm telling you, everything has shifted in this spiritual community from that time. Lots of other things are going on. The board is meditating together. We're doing all kinds of things. But our energy is going out because we have a message that lifts hearts. We had a You Matter campaign and we took a card and it was all about compassion. It was about reminding people of their own self-worth, a message that they may not have heard before. Or if they heard it, that they've forgotten. It's a message that's in this song. So I want you to sing this song with me for the people. So imagine you are the crystal in the center and your arrows are pointing out. With someone else, and then make a connection with someone else, because the way they shine blesses you. It blesses you. So let's sing with all our heart for who and what they are, for their brilliance, reminding them that they're an amazing light being. How could anyone ever tell you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you bless someone. And then I invite you to close your eyes and put yourself in the center of your attention. To be that person. Knowing that your cuts, your wounds, your openings have been painful, and they've also been joyous. Surrounded in love and supported by love. So regardless of whatever message you have heard before, listen to the voice that loves you, your own inner voice. Let it sing to you now.